Hello, hello, hello. How are you today? I have a very, very interesting and extraordinarily cool guest today. And what I can say about her first is that this is probably the first time Kindle, you know how Kindle AI like tries to fit you up with things that you should read? Kindle suggested I read her book. And I was like, hmm, what is this book? And then I started reading it. And the next thing I know, I like literally in the morning when I never read just for sheer pleasure, I'm, doing my other stuff. I'm reading this book for sheer pleasure. I was blown away. I had so much fun. And then I just had to reach out and ask Kate to come on the show. So big, big deal today. So you guys are going to enjoy meeting Kate. And thank you so much for being here. Hey, Kate, thank you so much for being here today. How are you doing?
Hi, thank you so much. It's such a pleasure. I am well, really well. Thank you.
Thank you. And I guess I should, instead of just calling you Kate, Kate Champion. And can you introduce yourself a little bit? Because you have, like, y'all are going to think that we're sisters or, somehow, somehow we got separated at birth. But tell us a little bit about everything you do and what you're up to, and then we'll just kind of dive in.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, I'm Kate, and I was born originally in England. I'm traveled a bit, kind of growing up. A little challenging first. I call it a challenging first quarter of my life was challenging, but kind of got through that. Traveled. I think people in Europe tend to travel a little bit more. So I've kind of been around a bit, and then landed in the United States, like in my late 20s. I was a late bloomer, decided to go back to university late, like literally 27, 28, started at in the psychology program at UCLA. And then, met my husband, blah, 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 now live in the Midwest. But in that meantime, I am a licensed mental health professional. I work a lot with grief, loss, trauma, addiction, and also on wellness and recovery, which is actually a passion area. So really helping people kind of overcome barriers and really live their best lives. I had a big girl job in a big healthcare corporation and kind of directorship position for many, many years. And about 3 years, 3 years ago, I left that world and transitioned into full-time private practice. And again, within that transition, I was also spending a lot of times outdoors. I took my first backpacking kind of 101 course, which is fantastic. And honestly, that was the inspiration for my book, Never Too Late. And then, my life has just snowballed since then. I've always been a runner, trail runner, hiker, love the outdoors, but this last 2 or 3 years that has just mushroomed. So yeah, that's what I do today. I enjoy working with people and I write. I'm on my 4th book and I spend a lot of time outside, backpacking, hiking, getting into nature. Those are my passions.
Oh, well, I mean, those are great passions for sure. So, okay, before we dive into everything else, because we got a lot to talk about today, would you talk just a teeny bit about your book, Never Too Late? Because I think it's one of those things that when, as a woman, you get to be a certain age, and that certain age can be anything, really. Like, that's what's so funny is people are like, oh, it's when you turn this age. And it's not. It's when all of a sudden you have a shift in your mind. But all of a sudden, sometimes we get ideas that we're too old for something. And this is a book that changes minds. So talk a little bit about like maybe a couple of your, I was going to say characters, but these are not characters.
No, they're
These are
real people.
autobiographies. Talk
You're
about
real people. Yeah.
these people who are just out there, like literally kicking butt in their 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s, right?
Yes. Yes. Yeah. So like I said, I started backpacking at 55. I don't know. I've again hiked and trail run a lot, and I just wanted to add backpacking. So I went out for my 55th birthday and bought this backpack, signed up for the 101 course, and went with 3 or 4 women out in the kind of hills of Kentucky. And the hike leader was, she's in the book. She was thankfully allowed me to interview her. So she was leading the the hike. She was leading the workshop, if you like. And it was 3 or 4 days, and it was literally kind of out in the wilderness. You were learning everything, kind of cooking, how to poop, personal hygiene, all of it. And she was 65. This woman was 65 years old. She started coincidentally hiking, backpacking at 55. And she has done so much. And she is a solo adventurer. So this female out on her own, she's a small, tiny little thing. I mean, she's just a little waif of a thing. She kind of loads up her pack and she goes. I mean, she's done the AT, she's done the mountains to sea, she's done the Florida Trail. I mean, she has just done thousands and thousands of miles. But anyway, I was honored enough to kind of be in her presence. She was leading this little trip, and I didn't know anything about it. It was pure coincidence, like the kind of planets aligned. And we were sitting around the campfire one evening, and I remember it to this day. It was a beautiful night. We had just been on this kind of outcropping, and we've done some mindfulness and some meditation and some yoga, and it was just beautiful. Later in the day, we were kind of, 3 or 4 women around this campfire, and she's telling her story, right? She's telling her life story. She's talking to us about, how she grew up with a lot of males and brothers, and kind of had a challenging life and challenging relationships, and but now is at the point of this life in her life where she could really do some of these things for herself, and her strength and her power and her determination, and then her age. I mean, I was just in awe, just in awe. And that time I had never written anything other than, papers through school, and, I've had a couple of professional articles published, but nothing like this. And literally, I kind of finished the hike, we said our goodbyes, and I was driving home, and I just got this idea for this book. I just really wanted to spotlight people like this, like real people later in life. I mean, there's so much around the young athlete, and honestly around males as well, male athletes,
Right.
but not a lot about older athletes, kind of what I call later in life athletes, and a lot of the female later in life athletes. And I just had this epiphany. I pulled the car over, and on my little post-it note, literally kind of sketched out this book. Went home and started to kind of collect some of these interviews. But it just met my mission, and I didn't know my mission at the time was really, covering kind of inspirational stories about real people. So it's not about, the first place or the win or the trophy, or it's really about, the passion and the spirit and the inspiration, and the fact that it is really never too late, right? And it's our mind and our mindsets that limits us, right? Oh, I can't get off the couch. Oh, I'm too old. Oh, I'm a woman. Oh, whatever, right? And no. I mean, we are gifted with these incredible bodies, incredible minds, and age is not a limitation. It really, really isn't. If you read that book, you'll see it. And that I'm still meeting people every day that are really crushing it in their later life years. Yeah.
Yeah. I've said it on here before. I don't think I've told you the story though, but my mother was a Taekwondo master, and she
Oh,
started in her 50s, and she was also a yoga instructor. So she was still teaching yoga to her 80s. And of course, right, with a with a model like that, I better by
yeah.
gosh be moving.
Right. Right.
Yeah. So okay, first I'm just going to say, y'all, we're going to put the name of all of Kate's books into the show notes. This one that we're talking about is called It's Never Too Late. And I will have the link in the show notes, because you really ought to go get this book. I mean, that was just one small story of probably, I don't remember exactly, 10 to 15 stories that are just like blow your mind. These people are out there literally kicking ass and taking names. So, it's such a great thing. And to step into a little bit further, you're really into endurance now, and you're becoming more and more into endurance, aren't you? So
Yes.
how's that playing? Because I guess, I mean, you're not later in life, but at the same time, you're not a puppy. So how's that playing, right?
Right. Yeah. So that's a great question. So I'm 58. I'm 50. I'll be 59 next year. And I have to tell you, I feel like I am in the best shape of my life, not only physically, physically I'm strong, endurance wise, I can cover a lot of miles pretty quickly, but it's also mentally and mindset wise, right? I mean, it all starts up here, kind of in the brain. And I really don't feel like we can have really one without the other, right? So as we're working on our
Mhm.
endurance and we're working on our fitness, and we're working on our kind of strength training, because there's endurance as part of fitness, resistance training is part of fitness, and this mental mindset is part of fitness as well. And when we can begin to kind of work with our minds, start to kind of cut through some of the limiting beliefs and what I call the stinking thinking, right? The thoughts that keep us on the couch or keep us putting cookies in our mouth or stop us from getting outdoors because of fear or whatever. When we can work through some of that stuff, it's like kind of the fog clears, the fog clears, and it allows us to really thrive. And again, age is literally there's no limitation. What's exciting is nowadays, because with the neuroscience and the imaging and all the tests that we can do on kind of human bodies, we can actually begin to determine, we can determine obviously somebody's chronological age, like how old are we literally. But there are tests now pretty easily accessible that you can actually determine your kind of fitness age, right? Because
Right?
so people are measuring fitness age, and that's actually more of an important indicator than really chronological age. But it's a lot of fascinating. So for me personally, I'm doing a lot to kind of increase my endurance, work around the kind of day and night cycles, so the kind of circadian rhythms,
Mhm.
really set my day in a way that helps boost all those the juicy brain chemicals
Right?
and gets me kind of started really effectively for the day. So I start my day with a little endurance. And that is literally like skipping rope intensely, taking a minute break, skipping rope. I do a couple of rounds of that. And then I go into the resistance. And again, basically a kind of modified sun salutation for those of you into yoga, but with a few more plank and plank holds, because those planks, I mean, they are like they are the secret sauce, right? I think planks are the secret sauce to kind of to that whole body core strength, which is
Right.
again important. And then lots of water, hydration, and that's a really great way to set up my day. And I do that all within the morning light, right? Because they're now with some of the science, they're showing that our eyes have these photon light receptors, that if we can get that early morning light and kind of stack that with some of that brief endurance resistance work, I mean, that's a very powerful way to set up your day. Very powerful. So yeah, I mean, I can go on about that forever. It's a super exciting area and I'm learning a lot right now. But really, yeah, if you're feeling, I don't know, frustrated or like you're not getting where you need to be, I mean, really look at some of the science behind some of this kind of performance stuff. It's awesome.
It is very interesting, and I think that every week I say to my group somewhere along the way, "Well, if you wanna read the science about this, there's
Yes,
science behind this." There is, though.
yes,
I mean, it's
there
I think
is.
the really it's such an interesting time because 20 years ago, like, we thought brains got old and they were done, right? Like, end of story. And and same with bodies. It just, there were those few outliers. My mom, she was an outlier. There were a few of those out there, but it wasn't, a known thing. But it's just becoming such a apparent uh, thing that is happening in our world, and I'm just like super excited about not just what we can do, but the people who come behind us. Like, what are they going to be able to do, right? Like, these
Absolutely.
brains can do a lot. And you mentioned it already, like your brain is part of the whole fitness thing. It's part of the whole health cycle. Like, you can't do one without the other. I mean, you can, but not very well.
Yeah.
And
And
you
it's
get
not
the triple
sustainable.
punch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm all about sustainable fitness, wellness, whatever you want to call it. I mean, I'm personally in it to the long haul. I want to be out there until I'm 100, and then someone can just kind
Right.
of kick me off the mountaintop,
Right?
And I want to
Exactly. I'm always
be,
like, push me off the waterfall.
and I want to be able to be active. I mean, I have a bucket list that's so long. It's probably 2 lifetimes worth, but I just want to be engaged and active, for as long as I can. So it's not about speed, and it's not about winning, and it's not about first place, this or
Right.
that. Really about sustainable wellness for the long haul. That's what it's about. Yeah.
Okay, let me just ask you a question because like a couple of my big values are fun and freedom.
Okay.
So
Fun. And what was the other one?
freedom,
Freedom.
right? And this kind of falls in there, doesn't it? Because if
Mhm.
you have all this stuff that you're doing and taking care of, then your ability to be able to take care of yourself and have the freedom in life goes on forever, almost. Yeah. Yeah. So, okay, I have a couple of questions. Like I said earlier, like Kate and I could be here for, I'm thinking a week, but we're just going to keep it short. Okay. So you're talking about setting up your day for optimal
Mhm.
performance. And I'd like you, if you don't mind, just to jump in real quick and talk about, you're talking about circadian rhythms and getting started in the morning, right?
Mhm.
Does it matter if you're doing your high intensity or your cadence work early in the morning? Like, is that a true jump start, or is that a jump start for you?
Oh, that is actually a true jump start. So stats early in the mornings, I mean, you don't have to do like your massive endurance run or whatever. You can do something later, but just literally my little routine takes like about 10 minutes. So I'm not talking about a lot of time. So if you can stack some of that endurance, again, I jump rope and take a little break, do 5 rounds of that, and then I do, that kind of modified sun salutation. Really takes me about, and I'm again doing that in the morning light. That literally is promoting the flow of these kind of neurochemicals, things like dopamine, right? Which is
Mhm.
your motivation center,
Right,
right?
right.
So if you're kicking out the dopamine first thing in the morning, that's really powerful throughout your day. It does literally jumpstart your day kind of neurochemically. Right? So, and if you're getting again that burst of that first morning light, then that is also giving your brain, brain, and that's creating kind of helping your sleep wake signals adjust appropriately, kind of resets the melatonin, and then it helps, again, kind of helps your body kind of wake up. So waking up the body, we're waking up the brain, and we're kicking in some of these really important hormones kind of first thing in the morning. And
Okay.
there's some tips and tricks you can do later on the day. Like, I don't
Mhm.
know about you, but I get that. I'm England, right? From England. So you got that 3 o'clock tea time, right? That was
Right.
so wired in. It's like you want to stop, you want to have tea, you want to take a little nap. But there's, if you get that 3 o'clock fade, there's actually some more things that we can do. Some breath work, again, another kind of round of endurance. Even you can even, take a 20-minute kind of non-sleep rest. I'm not suggesting you kind of go into a deep REM sleep, but also you can put your feet up a little bit elevated, kind of take a few breaths, do some mindfulness, meditation, guided imagery. And again, that's enough, again, to kind of reset your system a little bit so you can go on for that next leg of the
It
day.
does. It
Fantastic.
does. Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, that is, I don't do it every day, but I will say that when I'm feeling that slug, which I don't normally, like my
Yeah.
energies, I'm one
Right.
of those people who's lucky, right? My energy is fairly steady, but every so often when I feel that, I'll just drop into a little meditation work, a little breath work, and it
Yep.
changes. It shifts everything. So, and that again is really our brains and
Mhm.
our, neurological system working with the body, because it's not just about muscles and bones and,
It is.
circulation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Another thing that can help in that little 3 o'clock phase or that later days phase is a brisk, if you get out into light again and do a brisk
Mhm.
walk, even 20-minute brisk walk, get some of that light in the eyes, get some of the air. Breath is so important, the oxygen into the body. That's also another way you can kind of jumpstart and kind of give yourself a little kick in the
Good
afternoon.
point.
And honestly, so much better than caffeine or stimulants. I'm
Oh,
not,
yeah,
I mean,
caffeine's a
yeah.
no-no.
So really in a natural way, we can
Yeah.
harness some of these things. We don't need to ingest all kinds of crazy drinks and things like
Right.
that. So, I mean, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. And let me restate something I just said. I said caffeine's a no-no. Excuse me. I drink a cup of coffee in the morning. Absolutely. I just don't do it again after noon.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay. So we're going to shift gears because this is very, very cool. This is like a super perfect timing because Kate just did a new book. And this book is an interesting book. I'm just going to give you the title first, and it is A Pocket Guide to Hiking, Running, and Backpacking: Safety Tips and Strategies for You and the Folks Back Home. What's so interesting about this is it's a woman written for women. And when I suggest to women that they get out on trails, they do some things, they try some new places, if it's not the first question, it's the second question. Is it safe? Like, I get that so much. And I'm like I told Kate before we started talking, or doing the interview, I'm not the best person to ask because I have a high tolerance of, is it safe? But Kate has in fact written this book, and stick around to the end because she has a very special gift for you about this book. But tell us a little bit about this. I mean, it's by a woman, written for women out there in the world. Why does it matter?
yeah, yeah. So, it's because there's not, when I did the research for this book, I'm looking at, comparing titles and covers and all the rest of it. I couldn't find one other book written by a woman for
Right.
women, right? So
Mhm.
that's why
It's true.
it's
It's
different,
absolutely
right?
true.
And B, I am a hiker, backpacker, solo. I've done a lot of solo trail running, and so I'm out in the woods. And C, I've had a couple of weird experiences. You could call them safety. Definitely, they're in the book. I'm completely transparent about them. I don't know if you want to go into that right now, but
But okay.
yeah,
Yeah, we talked about this briefly. So that's what everyone's afraid of, right?
okay,
That's what people are afraid of. We're going out into the woods alone. It's going to be dangerous.
okay.
But you had a couple of instances. Were they in the woods?
No, they were not. They were in town. I've had a couple of instances, and they've all been in kind of in populated. They've all been in populated areas. Um, One was in a very populated area in a kind of a public. It was on the trail, not in the backwoods, but kind of in a like a little town park. So the one
Sure.
in a little town park, and then one was actually just off the trail, right? And the most dangerous time, the most dangerous place when you are actually hiking is, that first part of the trail, right? When you come off the parking lot, or you cross that road and you are heading into the woods,
Okay.
because
Tell us
that's
why.
well,
Okay.
that's a couple of reasons. That's because you have people around you in cars, right?
Okay.
So people could be watching, people could be kind of stalking you out. They could be watching, they could see a solo woman kind of heading into the woods, and it's like, and maybe an opportunist. I don't know. It's not really happened to me. But but just being mindful about, when you're heading out there, make sure that you know, you do look around. You got to be aware, look around you. Don't have your head in the map and thinking, oh, where am I going?
Or
You got to act
staring
like
at the phone.
right. You got to act like you know where you're going. You got to be aware, right? And the more you are out there, the more you actually can develop that intuition, that kind of spidey sense, right? That tells you that something is off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is true. I mean, it's what I call a broad sense of awareness. Like,
Yes.
you need a broad sense of awareness in life, not
Yes.
just getting on a trail, walking through a parking lot, you know, coming out of a grocery store. It doesn't matter. Broad sense of awareness, but not fear, right?
Yes.
I mean, so so yes, I think a lot of us, if we're out there in life doing things, we get, that occasional weird thing that happens.
Mhm.
But has anything strange ever happened to you on a trail?
Like out in the backwoods on a trail.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, no,
yeah,
actually feel safe. I spent the night out in the woods, backwoods, completely by myself, like in the Allegheny National Forest, like completely by myself in other areas as well. And once you get settled in, it's a little creepy at first because you watch too many scary movies. I
right.
don't want, but you know what I mean. Your
Don't watch them
mind
before you
does
go.
play play tricks on you. But once you settled in and I mean, I do take pepper spray with me. I do have a whistle. I do have a little pocket knife. So it's not like I'm just out there with no clue. I mean, I could probably defend myself if I had to. I can run fast. I have trekking poles always. Trekking poles are a great weapon. Imagine a trekking pole in the groin, right? That's not going to feel too good. So, again, you have to be aware of your surroundings, but I've never had a scary incident on out on the trail in the backwoods. I had encountered nothing but kind,
Yeah,
helpful, like-minded people, males and females, of all
yeah.
ages, all ages.
I I I agree. I mean, if there was one thing that I could encourage, I guess two things now. The first thing I would say is for the women who are interested, just like learn to trust your gut and go out there and try some things. The second thing is read this book, get the pocket guide, because you then now know, like, there's just some little things that make such a big difference in our safety. And trekking poles and having someone at home knowing where you're going. Like all those
Hmm.
things matter, right? And instead of not going because there's a fear that holds you back, um, going, and you don't have to go alone. I mean, get a friend. I mean,
Oh, you
you
don't
don't
have
have
to
to
go
go alone.
alone.
But just do it because there's so much power in nature. Like just being in nature automatically calms our nervous system. Like instantaneous, boom, we're a calmer person once we get past like maybe the jitters if we're having the too many scary movie jitters. But once you get past that, it's just so much better for us to go out and play and to get out there. So um so what's the number one question? Is it about bears? Is that the number
Well,
one safety question that people
no, it's
ask you?
usually about human
Is it about
predators.
humans? Oh,
Yeah,
good, good. Yeah. Well,
usually
human
about
predators,
human.
yeah. Yeah, they're
And
in the cities.
usually that is the biggest one is that, other humans are the biggest predator for humans, unfortunately, sadly. But again, I haven't experienced that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
And there's just so much like there's safety in numbers. And I never want to make women afraid of going out and trying things. Um, ever. I mean, I think that if you have knowledge, you're armed with Kate's book, you have a broad scope of awareness,
mhm,
and you have a sense of wonder because
mhm.
there's just so much out there in the woods to see and do and have fun with, then you're going to find that, there's not something to be afraid of. So, but okay, we will come back to actually go ahead right now if you don't mind. We're going to put a link on the show notes, but you had offered the book. Is that what you just said to me before we started?
Yes, I'll be happy. 'Cause this is really a kind of a labor of love and just almost like a public awareness announcement. I feel like this is what this book is about, this little pocket guide. And it is a little pocket, it's like 80 pages. It's super quick read, but super helpful. And then I think it has some exercises in the back. I honestly can't remember. Once you write something, it kind of leaves your brain. Um,
Right. It
so
does.
yes, I am offering just if you'd like to download it, you can jump on my website and download it. Sign up for the newsletter. That's also free, but to get that, you can download your free copy of the Pocket Guide. And
Go
yeah,
ahead and give us your website right now, even though it's going to be in the show notes. Give us your website.
it is Kate Champion Author at, oh no, that's my email, katechampionauthor.com. Yeah, super simple.
HateChampionAuthor.com. Okay. And of course, we'll have it in the show notes. And if you get my newsletter, you'll get it right up about this because it's too much fun. And, but that's a very, very generous offer. So take
Oh,
her up before she's like, on the New York Times bestseller with this one. And the publisher has said no more free books. Okay. So do that. Okay. Couple of other questions. I can't keep you all day, even though I'd like to. You have some information for people who need to be like starting over or starting
mm,
again. And I know what I like to tell people, but what are your top tips? Like, what are the things you say if someone is starting again at something? What would you
yeah,
say?
that's a great book. And that's also the title of my second book, Starting Out, Starting Over. And it was really motivated or inspired by people that have been kind of out of the loop for a little while and now kind of, again, maybe a little later in life, kind of trying to get back on track. So my top tips would be really learn about what is willpower and what is motivation, right? And
A little
how
different.
they are different. They are
They
different.
are
And
different.
how do you harness work with both of them? Again, this
Yeah.
really goes back to optimizing your day. Like when is your body more likely to kind of be willing to get those shoes on and go outside for 5 minutes or 10 minutes or whatever, right? When is your body more likely to do that? And so it's learning a lot about yourself. Is harnessing, understanding that willpower is a muscle and we only have a certain amount of it during the day, right? So it's understanding that. And then there's some things you can actually do with regard to motivation, right? To help figure out your why are you doing this? Maybe some people are really like to use maybe positive motivation. I want to feel better and I want to be around for my grandkids. Some people are wired for maybe more negative motivation, like
Right.
I don't want to gain any more weight and I'm fed up sitting on the couch, right? So whatever, it doesn't
Yeah.
really matter, but kind of trying to figure out your why and then really kind of crafting your day and figuring out where you can start, right? It's not about anybody else. It's like, where do you, and again, your mind and your body, where can you start? Can you start with a walk to and from the mailbox? Can you start with a walk around the block? Can you start with a couple of stretches? Can you start with a 10-minute beginner yoga video, right? I mean, there's so many places that we can start. So it is figuring out like, where are you willing to start and then kind of building on that.
Yeah, I love that. I was talking with a new client last week and she this is what she said, and I'm paraphrasing, but basically she said, "Well, I know I should be going to the gym and I know I should be doing an hour's worth of cardio. I think I'm supposed to be doing it 3 times a week in the gym 3 times a week." And I said, "Okay, that sounds awesome. What are you doing?" And she said, "Well, I'm not doing anything right now." I said, "Okay, let's dial that back a little bit because it's not, it's just won't happen. It just won't happen. And then we'll have made ourselves uncomfortable, unhappy, and unfulfilled. And I love that you say, like, what is it that you can do? And then
Mhm.
when is it that you can do it? Like, what's that best time?
Yeah, what is your
What is that best time?
body, right? Your
Yeah.
body's time where it's more likely to kind of get up and have that little bit of a burst of energy where it could do that 5 or 10 minutes. It's kind of
Yeah.
trying to figure that out for yourself. And again, it's going to go back to those wake and sleep cycles. It's going to go back to setting up your day. It's going to go back to food and hydration and all that good stuff. But I am willing to put money on the fact that you can find an optimal 5 or 10 minutes. It could be, if you're working on a traditional kind of office gig, it could be 5 or 10 minutes at lunchtime. It could be 5 or 10 minutes on your first coffee break or your second coffee break. It could be 2 flights of stairs. I mean, it just starts small, 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 and then builds. Get
Yep.
get the endorphins flowing, get those feel good juices flowing, and then you're going to be more likely, right, to kind of get that momentum and kind of build on that. Yeah,
That's it. A body in motion stays in motion. And you've got to start
absolutely.
somewhere. I think people put their fingers in their ears when I start saying, you got to
But
start
I have to tell
somewhere.
you, I am a huge, we were made to move, right? We were
Oh, we
made
were.
to move. I mean, if you read, oh, I just read this book. It was amazing. Exercise. I don't know if you read it. I can't remember the author, but
Exercise?
the exercise, right? It's this big book and it's all about the kind of history and about movement.
No, I haven't read
It's
it.
fascinating. You'd probably love it. I
Okay.
would recommend it. It's a big one, it's a
Yeah,
big one. Fascinating, but he really talks about, we were really engineered as humans to move, right? We are moving creatures. We're not made for sitting, right? We're not made for sitting on desks or chairs or couches or stability balls or whatever we're on, right? We are made to move. So just again, using that, understanding we are wired, deeply wired for movement. Yeah.
we are. We are. And
Yeah.
I am not sure if it was you. I apologize because I really don't know. I get a few emails a day, but
Yeah.
someone said to me, yeah, I need to do XYZ today, or I get quite cranky if I haven't been moving. And I'm like 100%. I understand that because you're right, we're made to move. And and I do a lot of sitting in this chair,
Mhm.
way more than I'd like to. But at the same time, I mean, it's what I do. So I have found that as long as I'm adding those layers of movement on there, like you said, if it's 5 minutes or 10 minutes, or if I can go out for an hour, or if it's like whatever it is, it doesn't really matter
Doesn't
as
matter.
long as we keep moving.
Hmm.
Yeah. Okay. So
There's
like
a
I said,
different, so I just want to remember, a little
yeah,
bit of endurance, right? So that can be just walking, a little bit of resistance. So that could be a plank here and there. And then remember kind of balance and flexibility. I think that's as we kind of age, that balance and flexibility, kind of that core strength. I love planks. Really, really also important. But starting out, you don't really have to worry about that at this point.
you don't, but you need to. I have what I tell him is like a minimum daily movement, right? What's your MDM? And it's, you know, some sort of
Okay.
movement, some sort of balance, some sort of mobility, toss
Yeah.
and a little strength. And we're good though. We're good there.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah. Okay. I better wrap it up because otherwise I'll just keep asking you questions and you'll be here for the rest of the evening. So let me ask you this one thing though. What would you like people to know? Like if you were to just say like you really need to think about X, what would
Mm.
you like our listeners to know or take
I think
away?
I really want people to focus on community because I think, the connection and the support of community, it can be really powerful. It's one of the reasons, honestly, I started some of my Facebook groups and Instagram because I lacked when I was getting into backpacking, and the longer hikes, there wasn't anybody in my age that was willing to get sweaty and muddy and stinky and all the rest of it. It was like, okay, so I had to build a community that I was missing. And I think that's actually really, really important. And, we can support and inspire each other, and I think it's much easier to make some of these changes within community than it is solo, so I think I would really encourage that.
Oh, that's beautiful. And thank you. They're going to think that we conspired because I do love community. And it's funny too, because a lot of times I'll say like, I am a solo tiger. Like that's my thing. But the truth is without community, I wouldn't do anything that I do. And
Yeah.
so, I'm a delusional tiger.
Gets you. I'm really solo too. I mean, I have an independent practice, I have my own business, and I spend a lot of time on my own out in the trail. But there's something, I don't know, I can't put language on it right now. There's something magical or important
Magical would be
about,
what I would say. Yeah.
okay, magical about knowing that you've got some supportive others in the background, right? And they could be even, I mean, Facebook. Facebook is great. I have that little community on Facebook, which has been really helpful. And people start as strangers, but over time they actually become friends, and you really get involved in their lives, and they get involved. You all can support each other, and I don't know. It's just I'm big on community, even though I'm a
It's
pretty
yeah.
solo human. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. And our brains, I mean, you know this, Like it's the limbic system, right? Without that community, we don't live as long as we could and
That's
should and
true.
will.
That is
So,
true.
yeah,
Like, that is really important.
yeah, I think is live as long and as well.
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely. There's some research behind that to
Oh,
show
yeah.
the why that is so important, especially in the blue zones and the power of connection and community for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, guys, I'm going to stop because otherwise Kate's not going to get to bed tonight. But and there's just so much here. I mean, there's just so much here to dive into deeper. But make sure you grab the show notes so that you can get her book. But just in case you're taking notes, her first book that I got to read that got me connected to Kate was Never Too Late. And then she has also the new book, which she's graciously offering to you currently, which is a pocket guide to hiking, running, and backpacking. And it's safety tips and strategies for you and the folks back home. And then there's also starting out or starting over. So we are so grateful that you're doing this writing practice because everybody out there is benefiting from it. So thank you so much. And thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. It's been a great connection. I've really enjoyed our time and I really appreciate the opportunity. And everybody stay well and stay healthy and just kind of keep moving. And I'm happy to answer any questions or anything if anybody has anything.
Okay. All right. We are linking to everything, Kate. And thank you again for being here.
Thank you so much. Take care and enjoy your day.